You're in a conversation when someone says it. A sentence so foolish it stops you mid-thought. Everyone nods along, but something inside you recoils. You've just witnessed a pattern that separates wisdom from its absence. Intelligence isn't measured by what you know. It's measured by what you refuse to say. The unwise broadcast every thought without filter, believing volume equals value. The wise understand that some phrases reveal more about your character than any credential ever could. This isn't about judging others. It's about recognizing patterns in ourselves.
We've all spoken foolishly.
Awareness is the first step to wisdom, and examining these patterns without ego is how we grow. Epictetus taught, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we may listen more and talk less." Yet most people reverse this ratio, speaking before thinking, reacting before reflecting. Today, we'll examine 7 phrases that reveal intellectual carelessness, words that sabotage credibility, damage relationships, and expose lack of self-awareness. I'll show you exactly when these patterns appear and why they're so destructive. Pay close attention to number 4. It's the phrase that ruins more opportunities than any other, yet people use it daily while calling it virtue. If you're committed to speaking with more wisdom, subscribe so we can continue this journey together. Let's begin. Thing number 1. I know everything about the moment someone claims to know everything about something. They've revealed they understand almost nothing about wisdom itself. I know everything about marketing. I've completely figured out relationships. I understand exactly how this business works. Absolute certainty delivered with chest-puffed confidence. No room for doubt. No acknowledgement that complexity might exist beyond their current understanding. Tom worked in software development for 3 years. When he started prefacing every opinion with, "I know exactly how to solve this." In team meetings, when someone proposed a different approach, he'd cut them off mid-sentence. "I've seen this before. I know what works." When new frameworks emerged, he'd dismiss them without examination. "I already know the best way to do this." The team eventually stopped including him in planning sessions. Not out of spite, out of necessity. Why invite someone who's already decided they have nothing left to learn? When a major project required new technology, Tom volunteered to lead. He refused documentation, rejected training, insisted his existing knowledge was enough. 3 months in, the project collapsed, not because the technology was too difficult, but because Tom had built everything on assumptions instead of understanding. When the failure became undeniable, he blamed the technology, the timeline, the team's support. 2 years later, Tom's still at the same level, while peers who asked questions and admitted gaps have all advanced. Here's what this phrase actually reveals. You've stopped paying attention to how much you don't know. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with limited knowledge massively overestimate their competence. Real experts do the opposite. They underestimate their own expertise because they've seen enough to understand how vast the field truly is. When you claim complete knowledge, you're announcing that your understanding is shallow enough to seem complete. Socrates became famous for one statement, "I know that I know nothing." This wasn't philosophical wordplay or false modesty. It was recognition that genuine knowledge reveals how much more exists to learn. The wisest person in any room is often asking the most questions, not providing all the answers. Think about it. Every field contains more depth than one person can fully grasp in a lifetime. Physics, psychology, business, relationships, cooking. The complexity goes down layers most people never see. Claiming complete knowledge doesn't make you look confident. It makes you look like you stopped learning at the surface level and mistook it for the bottom. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the Roman Empire, still wrote daily reflections questioning his own judgments. If someone with that much power and experience maintained intellectual humility, what excuse do the rest of us have? Instead, try this. "I have significant experience here, but I'm always learning." Or simply, "Here's what I understand so far." You maintain credibility while staying open to growth, the actual mark of expertise. Claiming complete knowledge keeps you stuck where you are. The next phrase does something worse. It doesn't just prevent your growth. It guarantees you'll defend every limitation you currently have. Thing number 2, that's just how I am. 5 words that lock you in place forever. 5 words that rebrand character flaws as unchangeable identity. I'm just brutally honest. That's how I am. I have a temper. That's just me. I'm always late. It's my personality. People take destructive patterns and treat them like genetic traits, as if current behavior is destiny rather than habit. Sarah's team dealt with this for 18 months. David was talented but chronically unreliable with time. Monday meetings, he'd arrived 40 minutes late. Client presentations 20 minutes past start. Team deadlines hours after everyone else finished. Every time someone addressed it, same response. I'm just not a clock watcher. That's who I've always been. The team adjusted. They scheduled meetings 30 minutes early, built buffer time into deadlines, covered with clients because David was skilled and everyone has flaws. Then came the major pitch. Largest potential client of the year. 900 a.m. sharp. David leading the technical demo. Client arrived at 8:55, team ready. David's materials set up by others who came early. 9:00 past 9:15. Sarah making desperate small talk. 9:30. Client checking his watch. At 9:42, David walked in casually. Sorry, traffic, but you know me. I'm not really a morning person. The client left. Contract lost. Management's confrontation. David was genuinely confused. He'd been honest about who he was from the start. Here's what "that's just how I am" actually means. You've decided your comfort matters more than growth, and you're calling that decision authenticity. This phrase doesn't describe personality. It announces surrender. You're confusing patterns you developed with traits you were born with, treating learned behavior as if it's written in your DNA. The dangerous part, it's self-reinforcing. Every time you say it, you strengthen the pattern. You're not observing your character. You're choosing to freeze it. You transform from someone actively building themselves into someone passively accepting limitations. Character isn't discovered. It's built through repeated daily choices. Marcus Aurelius understood this completely. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Your patterns aren't prison walls. They're habits you formed through repetition. And habits change through different repetition. The person always late hasn't valued other people's time enough to build new habits. The person with the uncontrollable temper hasn't tried techniques that actually work. That's just how I am." Almost always translates to, I've decided the effort to change isn't worth it. Every Stoic text emphasizes the same foundation. We're works in progress, not finished products. Who you are today isn't who you must be tomorrow. Growth requires accepting that your current state is a choice. Uncomfortable, yes, but true. Instead, try this. I've struggled with this pattern. I'm actively working to improve. You own the difficulty without surrendering to permanence. That's the difference between a trait and a flaw. Your willingness to address it. If you've ever replaced "that's just how I am" with real effort to change and felt the shift, drop "I'm growing" below. Your progress might inspire someone who's still stuck in that pattern. That phrase limits only you. What comes next doesn't just hold you back. It wounds everyone around you while making you feel righteous about it. Thing number 3, no offense, but you're not qualified for this. No offense, but that outfit doesn't suit you. No offense, but you've gained weight. Maybe hit the gym. The prefix that supposedly softens the blow but actually highlights that, you're about to hurt someone and you're choosing to do it anyway. A friendship ended over this phrase at a dinner party I attended. 8 people celebrating Rachel's 30th birthday. Midway through dessert, her cousin Emma, someone Rachel hadn't seen in over a year, leaned across the table and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "No offense, but are you still with Mark? I always thought you could do better." "You're settling." The table went silent. Rachel's face shifted, shock, hurt, then a forced smile. "Thanks for the input," she said quietly, then excused herself. When she returned 15 minutes later, her eyes were red. Emma genuinely didn't understand the problem. When another friend confronted her later, Emma defended herself. "I was being honest. I said no offense first. If she can't handle honest feedback, that's on her." But Emma missed the entire point. No offense doesn't prevent offense. It proves you know your words will hurt. You're not being honest. You're announcing, "I'm about to damage you, but I want credit for the warning." It's like punching someone and saying, "No harm intended," while your fist is already in motion. Rachel never responded to Emma's messages after that night. When Emma complained to family about being cut off for no reason, they explained she'd humiliated Rachel publicly at her own birthday about one of her most vulnerable choices. Emma's response: "But I said no offense." The phrase reveals a fundamental misunderstanding. Honesty and cruelty aren't the same thing. You can be truthful without being tactless. Timing matters. Context matters. The recipient's emotional state matters. But people who use this phrase think moral superiority comes from telling it like it is, regardless of the wreckage they leave behind. Seneca wrote extensively about truth-telling, but always with one condition: consideration for the person receiving it. He taught that wherever there's a human being, there's an opportunity for kindness. Truth without compassion isn't wisdom. It's cruelty wearing a virtuous mask. Before you speak, Marcus Aurelius suggested asking 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If you can't answer yes to all 3, reconsider. And if you must share difficult truth, find a private moment, choose gentle delivery, and genuinely care about preserving the person's dignity. If you have to preface something with no offense, you already know it's offensive. That awareness should stop you, not encourage you to forge ahead with a worthless disclaimer. At least that phrase shows some awareness of harm. The next one is worse. People who use it genuinely believe they're demonstrating virtue, while inflicting damage without conscience. Thing number 4, I'm just being honest. This phrase ends more relationships and opportunities than almost any other. It confuses bluntness with virtue and mistakes cruelty for courage. I'm just being honest. Your presentation wasn't good enough. I tell it like it is. That's real honesty. If you can't handle my honesty, that's your problem. Using honesty as a shield for tactlessness, terrible timing, and complete absence of emotional intelligence. A manager at my previous company built his entire leadership style around this phrase. Greg prided himself on radical honesty. In department meetings, he'd criticize people's work in front of 30 colleagues. I'm just being honest. This report is subpar. Did you even try? When team members became visibly uncomfortable, he'd double down. What? I'm being honest. Someone has to tell the truth around here. Within 6 months, the atmosphere became toxic. People stopped proposing new ideas because public criticism felt inevitable. 3 talented employees quit. 2 others requested transfers. But Greg saw none of this as his fault. In his mind, he was the only one brave enough to tell it like it is. Everyone else was just too sensitive. The breaking point came during a client presentation. One of Greg's team members stumbled over a technical question. Instead of stepping in to help, Greg interrupted. Honestly, she's not prepared. I told her this might happen. The client looked uncomfortable. The team member's face went red. They lost the contract. When HR finally intervened, Greg was genuinely confused. I was just being honest. Isn't that what good leaders do? Here's what he never understood. Delivery matters as much as truth, maybe more. The people who weaponize honesty don't grasp that context. Timing and respect for human dignity are part of honest communication. They lack wisdom to consider impact alongside accuracy. Real honesty includes being honest about your own limitations and delivering difficult messages. It means asking, is this the right time, the right place? Am I the right person to say this? Will my delivery help or just hurt? People who hide behind I'm just being honest skip all these questions. They care about being right more than being helpful. Marcus Aurelius practiced what he called speaking only what you know to be true, and even then speaking with care. The Stoics weren't against honesty. They were against careless speech that damages while claiming moral high ground. There's a massive difference between truthful feedback and thoughtless cruelty, dressed up as virtue. Truth can be delivered with kindness. Can we discuss this privately? Carries the same honesty as public humiliation, but one preserves dignity and the other destroys it. I have concerns about this approach. Want to talk through them? Is honest without being brutal. If recognizing these patterns is helping you speak with more wisdom, subscribe for more Stoic insights every week. And if this video added value, hit like so others can discover the power of thoughtful speech. Weaponizing honesty reveals lack of wisdom, but some phrases reveal something even more troubling. An inability to take responsibility for anything in your own life. Thing number 5, it's not my fault. Watch someone's growth stop completely. Just wait for them to say these 4 words repeatedly. It's not my fault the project failed. They didn't give me enough resources. It's not my fault I'm unhappy. Life dealt me a bad hand. It's not my fault the relationship ended. They were too demanding. Reflexive deflection of any personal accountability, no matter how much control you actually had. My brother lived with a roommate like this for 2 years. Kevin blamed external forces for everything. Missed rent deadline. The bank app was down. Dishes piled in the sink. I've been too stressed at work. Lost his job. My boss had it out for me from day one. Every conversation ended the same way. Nothing was ever within his control. The pattern became obvious during Kevin's job search. He'd get interviews, then blame the companies when offers didn't come. They asked unfair questions. The interviewer clearly didn't like me. They wanted someone with connections. 6 months passed. My brother gently suggested Kevin practice his interview skills. Kevin's response: it's not my fault these companies don't recognize talent. One evening, Kevin came home furious. He'd been rejected after a 3rd-round interview. My brother asked what happened. Kevin explained he'd shown up 20 minutes late because of traffic and seemed distracted because he hadn't prepared properly. But it's not my fault. Who schedules interviews during rush hour? And how was I supposed to know they'd ask technical questions? My brother realized something. Kevin wasn't looking for solutions. He was collecting evidence that life happened to him, not through him. Within a month, Kevin moved out, blaming my brother for negative energy. Last I heard, he's still unemployed, still convinced the world is conspiring against him. Here's the trap. When nothing is your fault, nothing is in your control. You trade temporary ego protection for permanent powerlessness. You become a victim of circumstance, unable to learn from mistakes because you refuse to acknowledge them. Every failure becomes proof that external forces control your life, rather than an opportunity to adjust your approach. The Stoics had a clear framework for this. Epictetus divided everything into two categories: what's in our control and what isn't. But here's what people miss. He emphasized that our response to everything is always in our control. Traffic made you late. You couldn't control traffic, but you could have left earlier. Boss didn't like you. You couldn't control their opinion, but you could control your work quality and professional behavior. When you say it's not my fault, you're surrendering the one power you always have, the ability to influence outcomes through your choices. Yes, circumstances matter. Yes, unfair things happen. But your response determines whether you grow or stagnate. Instead, try this. Here's what I could have done differently. Or that was outside my control, but here's how I'll adapt. You separate what you can't change from what you can. Then focus your energy where it actually matters. That's not self-blame. It's self-empowerment. Avoiding responsibility is unwise. But there's a phrase that goes beyond avoidance. It actively broadcasts insecurity while the speaker believes they're projecting strength. Thing number 6, I don't care what anyone thinks. People who truly don't care what others think rarely announce it. This phrase is insecurity, screaming that it's confidence. I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I do what I want. Other people's opinions don't matter. Haters going to hate. I'm unbothered. Performative independence that paradoxically requires an audience to witness how independent you are. I knew someone in college who said this constantly. Lisa posted it on social media weekly. Living my life, don't care what anyone thinks. She'd make controversial statements in class, then add, I don't care if people disagree. She dressed provocatively, then loudly proclaimed she didn't care about judgment. Every declaration of indifference was public, emphatic, repeated. But watch what happened when someone actually criticized her. She'd spend hours crafting responses. She'd screenshot negative comments to show friends, explaining at length why those people were wrong. She'd post vague status updates clearly aimed at specific critics. Once, after someone questioned her opinion in a seminar, she didn't speak to them for 3 weeks. The contradiction was obvious to everyone except Lisa. If you genuinely didn't care, why check your notifications every 5 minutes? Why argue with strangers online for hours? Why bring up criticism days later unprompted? Her constant declarations of indifference were actually desperate pleas for validation, disguised as strength. Senior year, she applied for a leadership position and wasn't selected. Instead of accepting it, she posted a long rant about how the decision didn't matter because I never cared what they thought anyway. But she clearly cared intensely. She just couldn't admit it without feeling weak. Here's the truth. True indifference doesn't advertise itself. When you repeatedly announce you don't care about others' opinions, you're revealing that you care deeply. You're just trying to preemptively defend against criticism. It's armor, not confidence. The phrase itself is a response to judgment you claim doesn't affect you.